أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وزعها للإيمان فيها فاكهة والنخل ذو الأكمام والهب ذو الأسف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار خلق الإنسان جنة من معرج من نار فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان مرج البحرين يلتقيان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان رب المشرقين ورب المغربين بينهما برزخ يبغيان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يخرج منهما اللؤلؤ والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان وله الجوار المنشآت أقلام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان صدق الله العلي العظيم.
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات اللهم صل علی محمد و آل محمد. آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی اٹھ گیا باپ کا سر سے سایہ اٹھ گیا باپ کا سر سے سایہ آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی گھر میں فرش عزا بچھ گیا ہے خانہ رب میں ماتم بپا ہے سوگ میں ڈوبا گھر سیدہ کا آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی اٹھ رہا ہے جنازہ علی کا ایک محشر کا عالم تھا برپا سب کے ہونٹوں پہ تھا ایک نوحہ آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی، رو رہے ہیں یہ محراب و منبر، کہہ رہے ہیں یہ جبریل رو کر، ابن ملجم نے یہ ظلم ڈھایا، آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی، آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی، عرش پر مصطفیٰ رو رہے ہیں، سب کے سب انبیاء رو رہے ہیں، ہے فرشتوں میں کوحرام برپا، آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی، آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی، کوئی کلثوم کو دے دلاسا، اور تڑپتی ہے غم سے ختیجہ، مولا عباس سے کرتے ہیں نوحہ، آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی، آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی، غم ہے ماتم ہے شور بکا ہے، آسماں بھی لہو رو رہا ہے، اٹھ گیا سر سے زینب کے سایہ، آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی، آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی، اٹھ گیا باپ کا سر سے سایہ، اٹھ گیا باپ کا سر سے سایہ، آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی، آج زینب یتیم ہو گئی، پر محمد و آل محمد صلوات اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. I hope everyone is doing well, inshallah. And I hope that this month of Ramadan has been going well. My condolences first and foremost on these days and nights that we are commemorating the shahadat of our first Imam, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. And a thank you to the brothers and sisters who had worked on these nohas, these marsiyas that we dedicate to our beloved Imam. As we normally do before I start, we will take a moment to remember the marhumin and marhumat of all of our brothers and sisters, especially the marhumin and marhumat of the sponsors of these nights. I forgot to mention the sponsors of last night's program, so I'll do that along with the sponsors of tonight's program. Dr. Jafar Mehdi and Sister Nagin and family, Brother Mazhar and Sister Amina Ali, Sister Samina Ali and family, Brother Askari and Sister Narjis Hussein and family, Brother Kazim Mehdi and family, Brother Abbas Hamir and Sister Samira Devji and family. And for tonight, Brother Sayyid Akbar and Sister Safiya and family, Dr. Jafar Mehdi and Sister Nagin and family, Brother Asad and Sister Oj Ali and family, and Brother Sayyid Murtaza Abbas and Sister Zahra Naqvi and family. Let's take a moment to recite Surah Fatiha for all marhumin and marhumat, especially the marhumin and marhumat of these brothers and sisters, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladhina an'amta 'alayhim ghayril maghdubi 'alayhim waladdallin. Inshallah, I'll start today with the dua of the day. It starts out like this. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma nabbihni fihi li barakati asharihi. Ya Allah, in this day, make me aware of the blessings, of the barakat, of the suhoor or the ashar, those times of the morning of this month of Ramadan. وَنَوِّرْ فِيهِ قَلْبِي بِضِيَاءِ أَنْوَارِهِ, and enlighten my heart with the light of this month. وَخُذْ بِكُلِّ أَعْضَائِي إِلَى اتِّبَاعِ آثَارِهِ, and take every body part of mine, every organ of mine, and guide it towards taking advantage of this month. بِنُورِكَ يَا مُنَوِّرَ قُلُوبِ الْعَارِفِينَ, by the right of your light, O the one who brings light to the hearts of those who know him and have knowledge of him. Ilahi Ameen. Inshallah, we'll do a quick review and then inshallah we'll move on with the discussion that we were discussing from the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. We ended at this point. We said the women in Egypt, they started to judge Zulaykha, the wife of Potiphar. And they wanted to judge her because of two main reasons. First of all, because of the idea that she was after a slave, a servant of hers. And second of all, she was the female and Yusuf alayhi salam was the male. And it didn't make sense for her to want to pursue this so much. And because of this, the women in Egypt, they continued to judge and blame Zulaykha for this affection that she had. And they used to speak of her and they used to say, Inna lanaraha fi dalalin mubin. We see Zulaykha really being lost. She has no idea what she's doing. قَدْ شَغَفَهَا حُبًّا, this love of Yusuf has made its way into the heart of Zulaykha, and she doesn't know what she's doing at this point. The verses of the Quran continued. The Quran said, فَلَمَّا سَمِعَتْ بِمَكْرِهِنَّ, when Zulaykha heard of this makr of these women, she heard of the jealousy of the women, she thought and started to have her own makr. She thought and started to have her own plot. And her plan was to make sure that she creates a scene and a gathering where these women get a chance to interact with Yusuf alayhi salam. And the important thing that we mentioned about this part of the story was that these women, they were seeing Zulaykha, they were seeing Yusuf alayhi salam for the first time. Whereas Zulaykha, she had a heads out. She had essentially a head start because Zulaykha knew what type of person Yusuf alayhi salam was. Zulaykha knew that Yusuf is very attractive. Therefore, for her, it was different. But she wanted to create a situation where these women, at a single moment, they would see Yusuf while he is already an adult. And that she would show them the type of reaction that they were going to have. So the Quran explains this, and it explains it in quite a bit of detail. Usually the Quran won't go into this much detail as it has when it refers to this verse. But the Quran says, فَلَمَّا سَمِعَتْ بِمَكْرِهِنَّ أَرْسَلَتْ إِلَيْهِنَّ, she told her servants to each go out and call upon these women and bring these women to the gathering. وَأَعْتَدَتْ لَهُنَّ مُتَّكَأً, and for each of them, she gave them something like a pillow that they could rest upon, that they could lean upon. وَأَعْتَدَتْ لَهُنَّ مُتَّكَأً وَآتَتْ كُلَّ وَاحِدَةٍ مِّنْهُنَّ السِّكِّينَ, and each one of them she gave a knife to. And then وَقَالَتِ اخْرُجْ عَلَيْهِنْ. And as much as she had hid Yusuf up to that point, then she turned to Yusuf and told Yusuf to then enter upon these women. And the Quran says, فَلَمَّا رَأَيْنَهُ. The moment that these women saw Yusuf, أَكْبَرْنَهُ. They started to praise him. وَقَطَّعْنَ أَيْدِيَهُنَّ. And they started to cut their hands. وَقُلْنَا حَاشَ لِلَّهِ مَا هَذَا بَشَرًا إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا مَلَكٌ كَرِيمٌ. They said, this is not a human being you have in your house. This is an honorable angel that you have in your house. What we said about this part of the story was that these women in Egypt, as much as they wanted to speak to Zulaykha from a moral high horse before, now they realize the beauty of Yusuf. Before Zulaykha can even bring up the idea that now you see Yusuf and you see how attractive he is, before she can even speak of this idea, you find that the women are professing their affection for Yusuf already. In the verses of the Quran, it quotes the women of Egypt before it quotes Zulaykha. That means the women of Egypt, before Zulaykha could say anything, the women of Egypt, they professed their affection for Yusuf alayhi salam as quickly as they saw him. And that's why the verses then continue. Then after the women of Egypt did this, then Zulaykha started to speak to them with a different tone. Zulaykha started to speak to them with the tone as if she's trying to get things off of her chest. As if now they are on the same team essentially. As if Zulaykha is not embarrassed anymore that this affection that she had for Yusuf, that these women know about it. So then she started to speak. She said, فَقَالَتْ فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي لُمْتُنَّنِي فِيهِ. This is the one that you guys kept blaming me about. وَلَقَدْ رَاوَدْتُهُ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ. And I have been approaching him and I've been making these suggestions towards him. فَاسْتَعْسَمْ. But he has been ma'asum. He has kept himself pure. But let me tell you something. If he continues to do this, وَلَئِن لَمْ يَفْعَلْ مَا آمُرُهُ لَيُسْجَنَنَّ وَلَيَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. She said, listen, if he continues to reject my suggestion and my request, then I will do two things. First of all, I will imprison him. Second of all, I will humiliate him. I will make him one of those who is low. وَلَيَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. He will be one of those that is low. And we said this threat and this tone of Zulaykha has actually changed from the threat and the tone that she had before. Because when she was threatening Yusuf alayhi salam in the presence of her husband, she said either prison or I humiliate him to begin with, number one. And number two is that she was leaving that to her husband Potiphar. Whereas here she is saying, I am going to do this myself. And this shows that Zulaykha cannot take it anymore. Now, this is essentially where we ended. We said that when this happened, this gathering took place, from the verses of the Quran we understand that Yusuf alayhi salam essentially started to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he realized that now the threat and the test is even more severe. Because before he had to deal with one test that was Zulaykha. Now he has to deal with Zulaykha and the other women who are also professing this affection for him. That's why in the verses of the Quran he says, قَالَ رَبِّ السِّجْنُ أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا يَدْعُونَنِي إِلَيْهِ. Prison, ending up in prison is better for me than the thing that these women, it's a plural pronoun that he is using, that these women are calling me towards. That means his problem went from being just Zulaykha to then being maybe tens of women, hundreds of women at this point. Nonetheless, he prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he said, I would rather do this. But even when he is praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we said another point that you understand from Yusuf alayhi salam is the same thing that he said when he said ma'adallah. When he said ma'adallah, he said he was seeking refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the first thing that he said. Here again you find that Yusuf is essentially professing, he is confessing, he is admitting to the fact that he is weak. Not weak at, a big test or a small test. He is weak at any test that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts in front of him. Over there, when Zulaykha made that suggestion, the first thing he said was ma'adallah. Over here, the first thing that he does, he starts to speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he said this, وَإِلَّا تَسْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدَهُنَّ أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِنَّ. If it's not for you helping me throughout this test, then I will be inclined towards them. This is different, brothers and sisters, than the fact that a prophet will never actually commit a sin because he is infallible, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect him. That is for a person, this protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a prophet, that is there so that a prophet does not even consider the sin. Otherwise, if a prophet is not ma'asum, still he is such a pure individual that he will not end up committing this sin. So when Yusuf says, I will be inclined to do this, what does that mean? That means that Yusuf is saying, I am weak at any test that you put in front of me. The same way he said, Ma'adallah, in the first test that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in front of him, now with this test, he is saying, وَإِلَّا تَسْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدَهُنَّ أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِنَّ. If it's not for your protection, again, I need your refuge and I need your support. If I don't find that support and refuge from you, أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِنَّ, I will be inclined towards them. وَأَكُمْ مِنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ. If you remember, we proposed this question from the last session. We said that when Yusuf alayhi salam was speaking to Zulaykha, he said, إِنَّهُ رَبِّي أَحْسَنَ مَثْوَاي إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. He said, I would not commit this deed, because if I commit this deed, I will be amongst the zalimeen. I will be amongst those who are wrongdoers. And then, when it came to speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly, he changed the form of his speech, because the sin essentially is the same sin, right? It's not a different sin, it's the same sin. But now when he's speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he doesn't say, I will be amongst the zalimeen. He says, وَأَكُمْ مِنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ. Why? Because when he is speaking to Zulaykha, he has to speak from the perspective that a person like Zulaykha would understand. A person like Zulaykha doesn't understand that a sin and an act of disobedience towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stems from ignorance. That's why when he's speaking to Zulaykha, he speaks from a more, layman perspective. That listen, if I do this, then I'm going beyond the boundaries of my Lord, the same Lord that was protecting me before. But when he's speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's speaking at a deeper level. That this dhulm of mine, if I went ahead with this deed, it's dhulm, but I will speak of it as ignorance, because truly every sin that someone commits, the root of it and the main cause of it is the ignorance that lies beneath and before that sin. If a person even intends to commit a sin, that means that there is a means of ignorance inside of them that even allows them to go ahead with such a thing. So this change of wording, this change of terms that you find in the words of Yusuf, the way the Quran is narrating it, it's not haphazard. No, there's a reason why when he's speaking to Zulaykha, he is speaking of him being amongst the zalimeen, because that's a concept that a layman, a normal person will understand. If someone did good to you, and then you go and you do bad to them, people would say, oh, you wronged this individual. You would consider this person a zalim. It's easy for the layman to understand that. But if he were to speak to Zulaykha and say, I will be amongst the ignorant, Zulaykha would not understand this. At the end of the day, you have to understand that Zulaykha, this whole empire of Potiphar, this whole society that Yusuf alayhi salam is functioning in, this is not a society that has fundamental, principles of faith in it. Yes, they do believe in some sort of a creator, but there's a big difference between what they believe and what Yusuf alayhi salam believes. And therefore, initially, he has to speak to people from a perspective that people will understand it. But here, because he is speaking directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he puts it at a deeper level and a deeper layer. He says, وَأَكُمْ مِنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ. If I were to end up doing this, Ya Allah, you know that I will be amongst the ignorant. Why? Because every sin, it stems from a form of ignorance. Okay. Moving on from that, you will find it's interesting that now, of course, these women, because they feel like they're not going to be able to have this request of theirs essentially fulfilled, then they are going to become enemies of Yusuf alayhi salam, and we're going to get to those verses in just a second. But before we go on to that, here's the important point, and this ties in with the life of Ali ibn Abi Talib very beautifully. You see, if they were to ask us if we wanted the beauty of Yusuf, what would we say, brothers and sisters? Brother or sister, man or woman, male or female, if you put this blessing in front of anybody on the face of earth, and you ask them, would you want the beauty of Yusuf alayhi salam? What would we say? 100% of us would say yes. In fact, we would kill to have the beauty of Yusuf alayhi salam. We would kill to have a blessing like that. Why? Because we naturally assume that if I have the beauty of Yusuf, my life would be so different. In the sense that my life would be so easy. If I was just that beautiful. And sometimes it's not beauty, sometimes it's another blessing. If I was just that rich, if I was just that well known, if I was just that famous, if I just had, famous and rich relatives who would watch after me, then my life would be easy. But this part of the story of Yusuf is teaching us a very important lesson, brothers and sisters. Because Yusuf has the type of beauty that people look at and cut their hands, and still his life is full of trials and tribulations. Still his life is full of difficulties. You would assume that if Yusuf was this beautiful, that anywhere he walked, everyone would listen to him. Anytime he gave an opinion, people would respect it. But that's not how it plays out in real life, does it? Because Yusuf, as beautiful as he is, this beauty of Yusuf is only bringing about difficulty in his life, more so than it will ever bring about ease and convenience in the life of Yusuf alayhi salam. This is a big, big lesson to learn from the story of Yusuf. We would assume that if Yusuf alayhi salam had this beauty, that in any gathering that he walked in, everyone wanted to do what he wants to do. Everyone would listen to him. Everyone would respect his opinion. But in the real world, and in the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala manages the life of any human being, that will never happen. Every human being will always have tests. Even someone who has the beauty of Yusuf alayhi salam, his life will be full of tests and trials and tribulations. And not only that, his beauty, that very factor that we would look at and we would, wish that we had, that factor in particular is the cause of his trials and tribulations, if you think about it. If Zulaykha is approaching him in this manner, why is it? It's because the beauty that Yusuf alayhi salam has. If these women have now turned into a group together, right? And they are banding together, and now they are all approaching Yusuf alayhi salam. What is all of this about? Why are they making the life of Yusuf alayhi salam so difficult? They're making his life difficult because of the beauty that he has. So this beauty didn't bring much ease and convenience into the life of Yusuf alayhi salam, did it? It's interesting, you find in the ahadith we read that not only when Yusuf was an adult, even when he was a child, that there were people in the family, in particular the hadith says that his aunt, they wanted Yusuf around. That's how attractive and beautiful and sweet this little boy was. And so because of that, they had to come up with a plot and a plan. And the plot and the plan that they came up with was that they had a belt that they had received from Ishaq alayhi salam. And this belt, they put it on Yusuf alayhi salam. And then they went to Yaqub and they said, Yaqub, look, Yusuf has stolen this belt from us. And the punishment during that time and in that society was that if you were found to be guilty of stealing something, then you would have to serve the person that you stole from. So then Yusuf alayhi salam, he had to go and live with his aunt and work for his aunt. And his aunt did this based on this hadith. All of this for what? Just to have him around. The beauty of Yusuf, is it bringing ease and convenience into his life? Or is it bringing difficulty and trial and tribulation into his life? It is, of course, the latter. When we look at people who are blessed in their lives, brothers and sisters, we're looking from far away. We're judging this book based on the cover. We look at this person, we say, wow, he's so blessed. I'm sure his life is so easy. And if you said that to Yusuf alayhi salam, of course Yusuf would laugh at you that you thought that. And that you would say that, because then Yusuf would say, my life would have been 10 times easier if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had not given this beauty to me. Right? And you also find this in the life of Ali ibn Abi Talib. You would assume that someone that the Prophet has shown so much affection for, has shown so much love for, that in a Muslim society, this person would be elevated in the eyes of people, that people would listen to him, that people would be willing to give their lives and their wealth for him. But then you look into history and you find what? You find that there was so much jealousy against Ali ibn Abi Talib that this love and affection that he received from the Prophet, from a worldly perspective, it worked against him. From a worldly perspective, it made his life so much more difficult, right? the knowledge that Ali ibn Abi Talib had. You would assume that if someone knows everything, right, wouldn't that be a wonderful blessing for somebody? Wouldn't we assume that our lives would be so easy if we just knew what was going to happen in the future? Here's Ali ibn Abi Talib with the deepest levels of knowledge, the type of knowledge that even other prophets did not have. That they say in the verses of the Quran that these prophets, they had a little bit of the knowledge of Al-Kitab. But the Ahlul Bayt and the Prophet, they have all of the knowledge of Al-Kitab. This type of knowledge, right? Did this make the life of Ali ibn Abi Talib easier? Or did it make the life of Ali ibn Abi Talib more difficult? Did it bring about more trials and tribulations? We don't have to answer this question. You look at the life of Ali ibn Abi Talib, you find that with all of this knowledge, because he had so much knowledge, this made life even more difficult for him, because with all of this knowledge, he had to speak to a group of people who could not understand what he was saying. That's why he would go into the well and he would speak to the well. That's why sometimes when he would even want to speak of these deeper layers, he would only be able to speak to certain companions of his. Dua Kumail is an example of this. When Kumail came to ask Ali ibn Abi Talib about this dua, which is referred to as Dua ul-Khidr, and there's a hadith about this in the life of Ali ibn Abi Talib. When Kumail came to ask Ali ibn Abi Talib, what did Ali say when Kumail came to his house later on that night to learn this dua of Khidr? You find in that hadith, Ali ibn Abi Talib said, Kumail, I am only sharing this dua with you because you are amongst our ashab sir, because you're one of my close companions. Otherwise, this knowledge that I have, can I share it with other individuals? No, I can't share it with other individuals. And because of this, the Imam was so lonely while he was alive. So then we go back to this lesson that we learned from the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, that just because you find blessings in the life of this person or that person, you cannot assume, number one, that their life is easier because of this blessing. No, sometimes their life will be more difficult. And that's a trial and a tribulation for them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it in that way for them. But if you don't have that blessing, then you cannot sit there and wish to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and only pray, I want what this person has. Even if it's not good for me, I want what this person has. Because you don't know if that's good for you or not. You don't even know if that will make your life easier or it'll make your life more difficult. You don't know what to ask for, right? That's why the verses of the Quran says, وَلَا تَتَمَنَّوْا مَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بِهِ بَعْدَكُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. Do not beg for those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted to some of you over others. Now it doesn't mean that you don't pray. You pray. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't give you something, then don't sit there and say, why didn't you give me this? Because you never know. Maybe that thing that you are asking for is like the beauty of Yusuf alayhi salam. The moment it comes into your life, it will make your life so much more difficult than easy. You assume things will be convenient for you moving forward. But then when you actually look at it, you find that no, your life is so much more difficult. When we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we pray. And it's no problem on insisting on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving us something. But then if He doesn't, then we can never walk away dissatisfied. If He didn't give it to you, then that means it's not good for you. Sometimes because if that blessing is given to you, then your life will become much more difficult. We don't understand these. This is the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? They say there was this man or this woman, I can't remember, that he was married, right? And his wife was, was good looking or wasn't very good looking. And he prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, Ya Allah, give me a wife, take the beauty of my wife and increase the beauty of my wife. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did that for him. And of course, this is a fiction, a story that, it's not a real story. This is just a tale and an example, really. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala added to the beauty of his wife. Then when his wife was walking around, coming and going different places, she would attract attention to herself because of this beauty. Then, he said, listen, Ya Allah, if you could take this beauty away, I'm tired of people, paying so much attention to my wife. I'd rather not have her have this beauty. So then she went back to not looking good. And he said, I don't like this either. Right? And he said, I'll just somewhere in the middle is fine with me. Right? That's essentially how we are. Because we assume that if we have this blessing or that blessing or this blessing, right? If our husband looks very good or our wife looks very good, and these are just examples, sometimes it's being rich, sometimes it's being famous, right? Sometimes it's people liking us, whatever the case may be. We assume that if that blessing were to come into our life, life would be easy. But then a lot of times it is not easy. The beauty of Yusuf is only causing trouble for him. And of course for him it's a trial and a tribulation. For us, of course, it's a lesson to be learned. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when Yusuf alayhi salam continued to call to us, فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded to his call, فَصَرَفَ عَنْهُ كَيْدَهُنَّ, and because of that, he removed the plotting of these women from him. Again, you will find the same terminology that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used before. When Zulaykha came to Yusuf and made that suggestion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, كَذَلِكَ لِنَصْرِفَ عَنْهُ السُّوءَ وَالْفَحْشَاءَ. We did this so that we could turn the evil away from Yusuf. Not Yusuf away from the evil, because Yusuf never decided to turn towards this idea and this suggestion. Here again, you find that Yusuf alayhi salam has never even turned towards this suggestion. It's not that he was considering it to begin with. That's why the verses of the Quran say what? فَصَرَفَ عَنْهُ كَيْدَهُنَّ. He removed their evil from him instead of saying that we removed Yusuf from these women. Again, this shows that Yusuf never ever considered even doing any of these things. إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. He is the one, this line is very beautiful. He is the one who can hear, who can listen. Al-Alim, who knows what's going on. What is this part of the verse telling us? That whenever a servant of ours comes and asks us for help, when he comes to our door and he begs us for help, it's not that we would ever ignore him. No. If he asks us for help because he feels like he's going through a test and he feels weak and he needs our support and our refuge, إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be there to respond to his prayer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be there to protect him. Yes, of course he has to put in the work. Of course he has to still try his best. But if he prays to us and if he calls upon us and he doesn't feel like he can go on with this test on his own, then we will be there to help him. We will be hearing him and we will know what's happening with him. The same wording you find when the Prophet is told, فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. You seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why so? Because he is as-Sami'un Alim. Because when you do seek refuge in him, he will be there. He will be waiting for you. Okay. ثُمَّ بَدَى لَهُم مِّن بَعْدِ مَا رَأَوُا الْآيَاتِ لَيَسْجُنُنَّهُ حَتَّى حِينٍ. Time passed, and as much as these women and Zulaykha saw that they wanted to get, Yusuf to go ahead with this request, they saw that, Yusuf is not doing this. ثُمَّ بَدَى لَهُم مِّن بَعْدِ مَا رَأَوُا الْآيَاتِ. After they saw different signs from Yusuf, the way Yusuf was interacting with them, they realized Yusuf is not going to go ahead with this. So what came to their mind was this. They said, well, for now, what we will do, we will put him into prison. And you can tell that this was a decision that they came to along with Zulaykha, because the verse doesn't say that Zulaykha put him in prison, although she might have been the most powerful amongst them. But you find the verse says, لَا يَسْجُنُنَّهُ, that they all put him into prison. Okay. So they saw that they're not going to be able to get along with Yusuf. Yusuf is not going to fulfill this request of theirs. They said, for now, we're going to put him into prison. Why put him into prison right now? Mainly because this was their way of showing, at least in the eyes of the public, that yes, if this has happened between the wife of Potiphar and Yusuf, it's Yusuf who's at fault, right? That's why he is being arrested. That's why he is being put into prison. This was a move in order to show to the public, essentially, that it was Yusuf that was at fault on one hand, and on the other hand, that Zulaykha was able to put him under pressure, right? Put him into difficulty. Okay, Yusuf enters into this prison. And now he goes again from being at the very peak of his luxurious life that he was living in this palace, and hundreds of women were making these suggestions towards him. He goes from that lifestyle to then what? A terrible lifestyle in a prison, where other slaves and servants that are suspicious of them, that they might be plotting against the king, are also in the same prison. I want to pause here, Because when you look at the story of Yusuf, there are so many ups and downs. And I tell you, brothers and sisters, if we went in through as many ups and downs as Yusuf alayhi salam did, after the first one, we would be done with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We would not even rely on Him anymore. Look at what Yusuf did. Yusuf went from being the beloved of his father at the top of his life. What else do you want at the age of 9? The biggest thing that you want at the age of 9 is that you have the affection of your father, right? You have the love and affection of the person who is watching over you. He went from that all the way down to the lowest point in the bottom of a well, where he initially might have assumed that he would have died, and we know that the Quran tells us that Jibreel told him that he would not die there. Nonetheless, it is a very, very low position to be at. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought him up again and placed him in a palace that his brothers could essentially only dream of. So then again, this is an up, the up and down that he had. Now this is up again. Now his life is easy and convenient again. And then his life starts to become more difficult again. Here's the thing. This time when Yusuf alayhi salam goes into prison, if it was any of us, we would have already given up on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We would have said, He saved us one time, but I mean, how many times is He going to save us? You would assume that in our life there is one up, one down, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings us up again. But what we're learning in the story of Yusuf alayhi salam is that there are multiple ups and downs. You will have to go up, then you'll bring you down, then we will bring you up again, then we will bring you down again. And this is another lesson for us, that when we find in our life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us some blessing, shows us some mercy, and that our life is convenient, that we don't assume it's going to stay that way. No, there's going to be downs again, but hopefully there will be ups again as well. As much as Yusuf has gone from being with his father to this low of being in the well, of going back up to being in this luxurious lifestyle, now he's going to prison again. Still he is not losing his faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this, of course, is the faith of the Prophet. This is no joke. Yusuf is in the ranks, of course, of the prophets of the world. So, of course, we're not expecting that type of faith from ourselves. But essentially, it is a lesson to remember that you might go through ups and downs in life, but at the end of the day, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching after somebody, then at the end of the day, He's going to make sure that whatever He has decided for this person, that happens. If it is for Yusuf to then become the right-hand person of the Pharaoh of Egypt, then that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to actualize. That is what is going to happen in the life of Yusuf alayhi salam. Just remember as we're going along with the story, how many ups he has, how many downs he has, and still he does not lose his faith. The second time when he ends up in this prison, if it was any of us, of course, a long time ago, we would have lost faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he ends up in this prison, two individuals approach Yusuf alayhi salam, and they start to speak to Yusuf alayhi salam of these dreams that they have seen. We will take a moment, inshallah, when we get a chance to discuss the rest of the story. Tomorrow we won't be discussing the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. We'll be discussing another topic that, inshallah, will relate more closely to the life of Ali ibn Abi Talib. But when we get back to this, I believe it will be Friday, if I'm not mistaken. Well, actually, today is Wednesday, and then Thursday, so Saturday, inshallah, we'll get back to this story. What you find here is that these two men come into the prison. They start to tell their dreams to Yusuf alayhi salam. First of all, if they didn't know who Yusuf was and they've met him in this prison, why are they speaking of their dreams to Yusuf alayhi salam? Second of all, is it a good idea to then speak of your dreams to anybody and everybody that you find? This is a very common thing that we do. Third of all, what is it that these men said and how Yusuf alayhi salam interpreted their dream, and how this brought about the savior or the saving of Yusuf alayhi salam from this prison? Inshallah, that we will discuss in next week's session. I want to take a moment, inshallah, these 5-10 minutes that we have left. Let's take our hearts to the city of Kufa, and let's prepare to hear the masa'ib of our beloved first Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. Sallallahu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. I have some ahadith here. I'll share these ahadith. These ahadith really, that share what is happening in the life of Ali ibn Abi Talib during these final moments is really a masa'ib in and of itself. Because when you read the moments that Ali ibn Abi Talib has, when you read the situation that he is going through, what his daughter is going to be going through, what his family is going to be going through these days and nights, this is the masa'ib of Ali ibn Abi Talib. This brings pain to our hearts. The hadith says that after Ibn Muljam, they brought Ibn Muljam presence of Kulthum, the daughter of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And the daughter and the father, you know better than I do, that the relationship that these two have with one another is such a strong bond. It's such a strong relationship. It's like no other relationship that you would find out there. And Kulthum, the hadith says, she started to cry. And as she was crying, she turned to Ibn Muljam. And she said to Ibn Muljam, why is it that you killed the commander of the faithful? And you find this grudge in the heart of Ibn Muljam. He responded, he said, I did not kill the commander of the faithful. I killed your father. Your father was a nobody. I killed him. I got rid of him. The hadith says, Kulthum, she continued to cry. She says, I wish and I hope that my father will walk away from this wound still being alive. And then Ibn Muljam said these following words and these following sentences that really brings pain to the heart of the daughter of Ali ibn Abi Talib, because Ibn Muljam wanted to make sure that he cuts off all the hope that Kulthum has in these final moments. He then turned to Kulthum, said, Kulthum, what are you having hope for? I can tell you one thing for sure. Your father will not come back from this wound alive, because this sword, I have been working on it for a whole month. I have bought it for 1,000 dirhams. And I bought the poison for it with 1,000 dirhams. And I have let it lay in the poison for a number of days. If I were to take this sword and I were to strike everyone in Kufa with it, all of them would die. Let alone the fact that I only struck Ali ibn Abi Talib. Kulthum, let me tell you something. Your father has no hope to come back from this. And they say that Kulthum, she continued to cry at this point. Then you continue with these moments, these final days of Ali ibn Abi Talib. You find it's just difficulty after difficulty. They say that when he was sick and that this wound was so severe, of course they went out into the city to find doctors who could come and who could heal the wound of Ali ibn Abi Talib. They say that they brought one of these doctors. His name was Athir ibn Amr. Athir, he says, I sat there and I started to work on this wound. And the narrator of this narration says that as this doctor took a look at the wound of the head of Ali ibn Abi Talib, he then called out for an organ of the body of the sheep. He said, I need this as part of the medicine. They brought that organ to this doctor. This doctor started to work on the head and on the wound of Ali ibn Abi Talib. But the moment he put the medicine inside of the head of Ali and then he removed it, he saw that this blood does not look like the blood that is ever going to go back to being healed. It's never going to be cured. And that's why they saw the face of the doctor all of a sudden changed. And he only said 2 words. He turned to Ali ibn Abi Talib. He said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, a'ahid ahdak. Say your final words and say your goodbye. Because this type of wound that I'm seeing, there's no more coming back from this. This type of poison that I'm seeing, there's no more coming back from this. Imagine the atmosphere in the house of Ali ibn Abi Talib when they hear these 2 words from this doctor. A'ahid ahdak. Say your goodbyes. Whatever it is that you want to tell your children and your family, these are the moments for you to say these to your family and to your children. And then they say Ali ibn Abi Talib, he then called for a dawat and a qalam. He then called for a piece of paper and a pen to then write his wasiyah for his children. These days are difficult days for Ali ibn Abi Talib. Sometimes he is conscious, sometimes he will faint. Asma bint Umays says, this was a wife of Ali ibn Abi Talib. She says, we were there around Ali during those final days, and constantly he would faint and he would come back. ثُمَّ شَهِقَ شَهْقَةً. One time he took this sigh and then he fainted. And when he came back, he was saying things and he was responding to someone. And I asked him, I said, Ya Ali, who are you responding to? You are here with us. Nobody is speaking to you. And he says that Ali ibn Abi Talib then turned towards me, said, Ya Asma, when I fainted right now, I saw my grandfather, right? And I saw the Prophet of Allah. And more than anybody else, and more importantly than anybody else, I saw my wife Fatima. I saw my wife who is waiting for me. She is waiting for me to leave this world and join her. And then she pointed and showed to me the house that we would have in heaven together. Look at how painful these words are from the mouth of Ali ibn Abi Talib, that as much pain that he is going through, he has missed Fatima to Zahra so much that the fact that he is joining Fatima to Zahra will make him forget about all of the pain that he has. Allah la'natullah ala al-qawmi al-zalimin wa saya'lamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalabin yanqalibun. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of our brothers and sisters who are in difficulty and in pain, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants them health and afiyah, inshallah. Before, inshallah, we end, I want to take a moment for us to recite Surah Fatiha, again for the sponsors of last night and tonight's program. Dr. Jafar Mehdi and Sister Nagin and family, Brother Mazhar and Sister Samina Ali and family, Brother Askari and Sister Narjis Hussein and family, Brother Kazim Mehdi and family, Brother Abbas Hamir and Sister Samira Devji and family. And for tonight, Brother Sayyid Akbar and Sister Safiya and family, Dr. Jafar Mahdi and Sister Nagin and family, Brother Asad and Sister Oj Ali and family, and Brother Sayyid Murtaza Abbas and Sister Zahra Naqvi and family. Let's recite a Surah Fatiha for all of their marhumin and marhumat, as well as your own marhumin and marhumat with a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
دو بار نماز شہید ہوئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں دو بار نماز شہید ہوئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں دو بار نماز شہید ہوئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں دو بار بہا ہے خون علی دو بار بہا ہے خون علی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں دو بار نماز شہید ہوئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں دو بار نماز شہید ہوئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں ایک پیاسا تھا ایک روزے سے ایک شوہر تھا ایک بیٹا تھا ایک شوہر تھا ایک بیٹا تھا زہرا پہ قیامت ٹوٹ گئی زہرا پہ قیامت ٹوٹ گئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں دو بار نماز شہید ہوئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں دو بار نماز شہید ہوئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں ایک بنت علی کا بابا تھا ایک باپ کے جیسا بھائی تھا ایک باپ کے جیسا بھائی تھا دو بار یتیم ہوئی بی بی دو بار یتیم ہوئی بی بی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں دو بار نماز شہید ہوئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں دو بار نماز شہید ہوئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں ایک بار علی کو چھروانے ایک بار حسین کے سرہانے ایک بار حسین کے سرہانے روتی ہوئی آئی بیت نبی روتی ہوئی آئی بیت نبی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں دو بار نماز شہید ہوئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں دو بار نماز شہید ہوئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں ایک پیاسا تھا ایک روزے سے ایک شوہر تھا ایک بیٹا تھا ایک شوہر تھا ایک بیٹا تھا زہرا پہ قیامت ٹوٹ گئی زہرا پہ قیامت ٹوٹ گئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں دو بار نماز شہید ہوئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں دو بار نماز شہید ہوئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں دو بار بہا ہے خون علی دو بار بہا ہے خون علی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں دو بار نماز شہید ہوئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں دو بار نماز شہید ہوئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں
سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. الله أكبر الله أكبر. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. حي على خير العمل. حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.